The Galactic Supreme Council had exactly three problems on this particular Tuesday. First, someone had accidentally declared war on a species that didn't exist. Second, the coffee machine in the main conference room was dispensing what could only be described as liquid regret. And third, there was Earth. Earth, that ridiculous little blue marble spinning around an unremarkable star, populated by bipedal creatures who had somehow managed to survive despite having the collective common sense of a particularly dim bulb. The Council had been trying to ignore Earth for roughly 2,000 standard cycles, hoping it would just go away or blow itself up, whichever came first. Gentle beings, announced Councillor Vrex Malthor, whose name was unfortunately pronounced exactly like a digestive disorder. We have received 17,000 complaints about the Earth situation this quarter alone. The complaints ranged from "they keep broadcasting terrible music into space" to "one of their satellites nearly hit my vacation cruiser," to the particularly disturbing "they sent back our peace probe with modifications that made it play something called Never Gonna Give You." Up on infinite loop, Councillor Zippity Flan, who had clearly chosen her name during a regrettable youth phase, waved three of her tentacles dismissively. "Surely we can just relocate them. Find them a nice uninhabited system. Maybe one with a black hole for easy disposal if things go wrong." "Impossible!" thundered Vrex Malthor. "According to Galactic Regulation 42B subsection whatever, Earth has been classified as a protected developing world. We can't just move them without proper paperwork. And the paperwork requires approval from Earth itself." The irony was not lost on anyone. To get permission to relocate humanity, they needed humanity's permission. But humanity didn't officially know aliens existed yet, which meant they couldn't ask for permission without violating the prime directive of not scaring the primitives too badly. It was, as bureaucratic nightmares go, a masterpiece. "There is another option," squeaked Noodly Wumpkins from the back row. Everyone groaned. Noodly Wumpkins always had ideas, and they were invariably terrible. His last suggestion had resulted in the accidental extinction of 3 species and a really awkward conversation with the Interdimensional Health Department. "We could send a diplomatic team." The silence that followed was the kind of silence that falls when someone suggests using a nuclear weapon to open a pickle jar. It was technically possible, but the collateral damage would be spectacular. "A diplomatic team," repeated Vrex Malthor slowly, "to Earth, to deal with humans. Our very best diplomatic team," Noodly Wumpkins added enthusiastically, apparently missing the point entirely. And so, through a series of bureaucratic mishaps, interdepartmental miscommunications, and what could only be described as cosmic irony, the decision was made. Earth would receive a visit from the Galactic Supreme Council's finest diplomatic minds. The universe held its breath. Somewhere, a cosmic probability calculator exploded. The team assembled for this monumentally important mission consisted of 4 beings, each supposedly representing the pinnacle of their species' diplomatic expertise. If you believed that, you probably also believed that black holes were just really shy stars. Captain Blurgle Whiff commanded the expedition with the kind of confidence usually reserved for people who have never actually done the thing they're confident about. He belonged to a species that communicated primarily through interpretive dance, which made verbal diplomacy something of a challenge. His dance vocabulary was limited to "hello," "goodbye," "where is the bathroom," and an extremely elaborate routine that roughly translated to "I accidentally sat on something important." His second in command was Lieutenant Sproinky Doink, a being whose species had evolved from what could only be described as sentient furniture. Sproinky Doink had the remarkable ability to remain completely motionless for days at a time, which made him excellent for long space voyages, but terrible at first impressions. His method of showing agreement was to slowly recline backwards, which often gave the impression that he was either dying or preparing for a nap. The team's cultural specialist was Dr. Wimple Fronkth, whose 17 different degrees in xenosociology had somehow failed to include any actual interaction with other species. She had spent her entire career writing papers about hypothetical alien behaviors based on intercepted television signals. Her understanding of human culture was therefore based entirely on infomercials, soap operas, and something called reality TV, which she had classified as a form of primitive warfare. Finally, there was technical specialist Googly Plops, who had gotten his position through what could charitably be called creative resume writing. His qualifications included once fixed a toaster and good with gadgets, which the council had somehow interpreted as expert in primitive technology integration. Googly Plops had never actually seen most of the equipment he was supposedly an expert on, but he had watched several instructional videos and felt confident he could figure things out as he went along. Their ship, the Diplomatic Immunity, had been designed by the lowest bidder and assembled by beings whose understanding of quality control was more of a suggestion than a requirement. It featured such innovative design elements as doors that opened randomly, a navigation system that occasionally developed opinions about their destination, and artificial gravity that worked on a when-I-feel-like-it basis. The journey to Earth should have taken 3 standard days. It took 2 weeks, during which the ship's computer developed what could only be described as depression. The food replicator began producing items that violated several laws of physics, and Captain Blurgle Whiff accidentally convinced the autopilot that they were being pursued by cosmic tax collectors. "Are we there yet?" asked Googly Plops for the 800th time, while trying to repair the coffee machine with what appeared to be a rubber duck and intense concentration. "According to my calculations," announced Dr. Wimple Fronkth, consulting a chart that looked suspiciously like a restaurant menu, "we should be approaching the Terran system within the next—" "Oh dear." "What's oh dear?" demanded Captain Blurgle Whiff, performing what might have been an interpretive dance of mild concern, or possibly just stretching. "I may have mixed up the star charts with my lunch order," she admitted. "The good news is, we're definitely in the right galaxy. The bad news is, we've been heading toward a very expensive restaurant for the past week." Lieutenant Sproinky Doink slowly reclined, which everyone correctly interpreted as, "I am not surprised by this development." When they finally reached Earth, after 3 course corrections, 2 existential crises, and 1 incident involving a flock of what turned out to be space geese, the team faced their first major challenge. How exactly does one make first contact with a species that doesn't officially know you exist? The manual, titled "So You Want to Make First Contact? A Beginner's Guide to Not Starting Interplanetary Wars," suggested beginning with subtle observations of local customs and power structures. Dr. Wimple Fronkth interpreted this as "watch more television," which she did enthusiastically from orbit. "According to my research," she announced after 3 days of intensive TV watching, "the dominant life forms on this planet communicate primarily through something called advertising and resolve conflicts through elaborate dance competitions called game shows. Their leader appears to be a colorful bird-like creature called Big Bird, who rules from a place called Sesame Street." Captain Blurgle Whiff found this information suspicious, primarily because his own species used interpretive dance for everything, and he was reasonably certain that wasn't universal. However, he was not in a position to argue with someone who had 17 degrees in things he couldn't pronounce. "Perhaps we should try landing in this Sesame Street," he suggested through a dance that roughly translated to, "I have no idea what I'm doing, but let's pretend I do." "Impossible," declared Googly Plops, who had spent the last several hours trying to figure out why their landing scanners kept detecting what appeared to be flying metal boxes filled with humans. "The scanners show that location is entirely populated by large puppets. It's obviously some kind of puppet government." The accidental accuracy of this statement was lost on everyone. After much debate, consultation of star charts, and one heated argument about whether the beings called Muppets represented a security threat, they decided to land in what Dr. Wimple Fronkth identified as a major population center with significant governmental importance. They landed in downtown Poughkeepsie at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, in the middle of a parking lot, behind a Denny's. The first human to make contact with an alien species was Kevin Blunderstone, age 34, assistant night manager at said Denny's, who had come outside to take out the trash and instead found 4 extraterrestrial beings standing around a smoking spacecraft, having what appeared to be an argument conducted through interpretive dance, furniture rearrangement, and increasingly frantic gesturing. Said Kevin, which would go down in history as humanity's first word to alien visitors. "You guys okay?" Captain Blurgle Whiff immediately launched into his most formal diplomatic greeting dance, which involved a lot of spinning, several elaborate arm movements, and what Kevin could only describe as aggressive hip swaying. "I think he's having a seizure," Kevin whispered to Googly Plops, who was frantically pressing buttons on a device that kept making sounds like an angry printer. "Greetings, primitive being," Googly Plops finally announced through his universal translator, which had apparently been programmed by someone with a very loose understanding of diplomacy. "We come in peace to study your quaint customs and possibly relocate your entire species." Kevin blinked. "Relocate?" Said Googly Plops, suddenly realizing that might not have been the best opening line. "I mean, we come to bring you greetings from, he looked around desperately. "From the space place." This was not going according to plan. Dr. Wimple Fronkth chose this moment to step forward, consulting her notes. "Greetings, fellow advertising unit. We seek audience with your Big Bird leader to discuss your planet's dance-fighting capabilities." Kevin looked from the dancing alien to the furniture alien, who was slowly reclining in what might have been respect or surrender, to the one with 17 degrees who thought Big Bird was the president. He made what, in retrospect, would prove to be the most significant decision in human history. "You know what? You guys look like you need some coffee. Come on inside." And just like that, first contact happened over coffee and pie at a Denny's in Poughkeepsie. Because if there's one thing humans excel at, it's treating the completely impossible as just another Tuesday. The next several hours would have made an excellent comedy of errors if anyone had been taking notes. Unfortunately, the only record was the Denny's security camera, which had been broken for 3 months and was just blinking a red light to make people think it was working. Kevin, displaying the kind of adaptability that makes humans simultaneously wonderful and terrifying, decided to treat his alien visitors like particularly exotic foreign exchange students. He sat them down in a corner booth, brought them coffee, which Googly Plops immediately tried to scan for hostile intent, and began what he thought of as cultural orientation. "So where exactly are you folks from?" he asked, refilling Captain Blurgle Whiff's cup, while the alien performed what Kevin was learning to recognize as confused gratitude dance. "We represent the Galactic Supreme Council," announced Dr. Wimple Fronkth proudly. "We have traveled from the far reaches of space to make official contact with your civilization." "Cool, cool," Kevin nodded, as if people told him this sort of thing every day. "And you picked Poughkeepsie because—" Silence. The kind of silence that falls when everyone realizes that no one actually has a good answer to a perfectly reasonable question. "Strategic importance," suggested Googly Plops weakly. "It was on the map," admitted Dr. Wimple Fronkth. Lieutenant Sprinky Doink slowly reclined, which Kevin was beginning to interpret correctly as, "This is embarrassing for all of us." "Right," Kevin said, with the patience of someone who had spent years working night shift at Denny's and had therefore seen everything. "Well, I hate to break it to you, but I'm not really qualified to speak for all of humanity. I can barely speak for the night shift." This presented a problem. The aliens had prepared for many contingencies, Hostile governments, primitive technology, weird food, even the possibility that humans might try to worship them as gods. What they had not prepared for was a perfectly reasonable person pointing out that first contact protocols might require someone with more authority than an assistant night manager. Perhaps, suggested Captain Blurglewif through an interpretive dance that roughly translated to, "I'm making this up as I go along. You could introduce us to your leaders." Kevin considered this. "Well, there's Gary, but he won't be in until 6. Or do you mean like leaders? Because that's going to be complicated." "Why complicated?" asked Dr. Wimple Fronkth, consulting her notes. "Don't you report to Big Bird?" Kevin stared at her. "Lady, Big Bird is a puppet on a kids' show." Dr. Wimple Fronkth's 17 degrees in xenosociology had not prepared her for this revelation. Her entire understanding of human civilization crumbled in that moment, leaving her with nothing but the growing suspicion that maybe, just maybe, television was not an accurate representation of alien cultures. "Then who does run things?" she asked weakly. Kevin laughed, a sound that made all 4 aliens jump. "Oh man, that's a great question. Depends on what you mean by run things. There's the government, but there's like different levels of government, and they don't always agree with each other. Then there's corporations, and they kind of run different things. And then there's the internet, which nobody runs, but somehow controls everything." The aliens exchanged glances. Their briefings had mentioned the possibility of complex governmental structures, but this sounded less like a government and more like organized chaos. "So, there's no single authority?" asked Googly Plops. "Oh, there's lots of authority," Kevin assured him. "The problem is, nobody can agree on who has it." This was the moment when the aliens began to realize that Earth might be slightly more complicated than their briefings had suggested. "Look," Kevin continued, "if you really want to meet with governments and stuff, you're gonna need to go through proper channels, fill out forms, make appointments, probably wait in a lot of lines." Forms. Captain Blurglewif's dance became agitated. "Oh yeah, tons of forms. You're gonna need visas, probably work permits if you're planning to stay, health certificates, security clearances." Kevin warmed to his subject. Having spent his entire adult life dealing with bureaucracy, he was something of an expert. "Plus, since you're not from Earth, that's going to be a whole other set of forms. Immigration's going to have a field day with you guys." The aliens had fought space pirates, navigated cosmic storms, and survived the Council's quarterly budget meetings, but the prospect of human bureaucracy filled them with a dread deeper than the void between galaxies. "However," Kevin continued cheerfully, "there might be a shortcut. My cousin Danny works for the city. He knows a guy who knows a guy in the county office. We could probably get you set up with temporary visitor status, at least until you figure out the federal stuff." And that was how the galaxy's premier diplomatic team ended up in the Poughkeepsie City Hall at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday, sitting in uncomfortable plastic chairs while waiting to speak to someone about unusual visitor permits. The form they were asked to fill out was 6 pages long and asked for information, including previous addresses for the last 5 years, emergency contacts, and reason for visit. Captain Blurglewif's interpretive dance explaining their mission was interpreted by the clerk as performance art, and he was directed to the Parks and Recreation Department for a permit. Googly Plops tried to use his universal translator to complete the forms, but it kept converting everything into formal, diplomatic language. Under reason for visit, it printed, "to facilitate cultural exchange and assess the advisability of species relocation in accordance with Galactic Council Resolution 847B. The clerk read this, looked at Googly Plops, looked at the form again, and stamped it, "Approved, Academic Conference." "Welcome to Poughkeepsie," she said cheerfully. "Try the pizza while you're here." Dr. Wimple Fronkth spent the entire morning trying to reconcile her theoretical understanding of human bureaucracy with its practical reality. Her notes indicated that primitive societies typically had simple hierarchical structures with clear chains of command. What she found instead was a system so complex that nobody seemed to understand all of it, yet somehow it worked anyway. "How do you get anything done?" she finally asked Kevin, who had taken the day off to serve as their unofficial guide. "Oh, we don't," Kevin replied. "That's the beauty of the system. Nobody expects anything to actually work, so when something does work, it's like a pleasant surprise." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Spranky Doink had discovered something that would change the course of the entire mission. The waiting room chair was extremely comfortable. As a being evolved from furniture, he had strong opinions about seating, and human chairs, while primitive, had a certain ergonomic charm. He had been slowly reclining in increasing contentment, attracting confused but not unfriendly attention from other visitors. "Is your friend okay?" asked an elderly woman who had been waiting to renew her parking permit. "He's expressing satisfaction," Kevin explained. "It's cultural." "Oh, how nice," the woman said. "My grandson does interpretive dance too. Very artistic." This comment reached Captain Blurgle Whiff, who immediately launched into an enthusiastic conversation dance about the artistic merits of his diplomatic training. Within minutes, he'd attracted a small crowd of admirers who thought they were witnessing an avant-garde performance piece. Googly Plops, meanwhile, had made the mistake of trying to help improve the office's computer system. His understanding of primitive technology was based on theoretical knowledge rather than practical experience, but he was confident he could make some simple improvements. 20 minutes later, every computer in the building was running at approximately 10 times normal speed. The coffee machine was dispensing perfect lattes with customizable foam art, and the copy machine had somehow gained the ability to collate documents by reading the user's mind. "How did you do that?" demanded the office manager, staring at quarterly reports that had sorted themselves by priority and relevance. "Oh, just some basic optimization," Googly Plops said modestly, while privately panicking about the possibility that he had just violated several dozen galactic regulations about technological contamination. By lunchtime, word had spread throughout the building that there were interesting visitors in the permit office. By mid-afternoon, there was a steady stream of city employees stopping by to see the performance artists and try the new coffee machine upgrade. The aliens found themselves accidentally integrated into the daily routine of Poughkeepsie City Hall. Captain Blurgle Whiff had been adopted by the Parks and Recreation Department as an artist in residence. Lieutenant Spranky Doink had become the unofficial furniture quality consultant. Dr. Wimplefronk was helping with translation services for international documents. Her 17 degrees were finally useful. And Googly Plops was single-handedly revolutionizing the office's technological infrastructure. "This wasn't supposed to happen," Dr. Wimplefronk confided to Kevin during their coffee break. "We were supposed to make official contact with your leaders, assess your species' development level, and file a report with the council." "How's that working out for you?" Kevin asked. She looked around at Captain Blurgle Whiff, teaching interpretive dance to a group of accountants, at Googly Plops explaining quantum mechanics to the IT department, who were taking notes, at Lieutenant Spranky Doink being consulted about the break-room furniture arrangement by facilities management. "I have no idea," she admitted, "but I think we might be learning more about humanity than any official diplomatic meeting would have taught us." "Yeah," Kevin grinned. "What have you learned?" Dr. Wimplefronk considered this carefully. "That you're all completely insane, but in a way that somehow works. You've taken 4 aliens with absolutely no credentials for the jobs they're doing and just incorporated them into your daily routine like it's the most natural thing in the world." "Well," Kevin shrugged, "everybody's got to start somewhere, right?" 3 days into what was supposed to be a formal first contact mission, the aliens had settled into a routine that none of them had expected. They had been given temporary office space, a converted closet with excellent natural light, city employee badges laminated with their photos from the DMV-style camera that made everyone look vaguely criminal, and assignments that kept them busy but didn't require any actual authority. Captain Blurgle-Whiff had discovered that interpretive dance was surprisingly effective for explaining complex municipal policies to confused citizens. His dance interpreting the parking meter regulations had been so successful that the mayor was considering commissioning a whole series of municipal policy interpretive performances. Lieutenant Sproinky Doink had revolutionized office furniture assessment. His ability to personally test every chair, desk and filing cabinet had identified 17 ergonomic hazards, 3 structural deficiencies, and 1 desk that was apparently sentient, though nobody was sure what to do about that last one. Dr. Wimple Fronkth had been assigned to the Cultural Affairs Department, where her extensive theoretical knowledge of alien societies made her uniquely qualified to organize the city's international festival. The fact that all her experience was with hypothetical aliens rather than actual foreign humans was considered a minor detail. Googly Plops had become the unofficial guardian angel of the city's technology infrastructure. Computers ran smoother, phones had better reception, and the traffic lights had somehow developed the ability to optimize themselves for traffic flow. The fact that he was technically violating galactic law with every improvement was a problem he had decided to worry about later. The real problem was that they were supposed to be filing regular reports with the Galactic Council, and those reports were becoming increasingly difficult to write. Day 4 report. Dr. Wimple-Fronkth dictated to her recording device. Diplomatic Team 7 continues deep cover integration with local population. Have successfully infiltrated key governmental infrastructure. Local humans continue to display remarkable adaptability to alien presence. She paused, considering how to explain that they hadn't actually told anyone they were aliens making first contact. The humans had just assumed they were foreign exchange students, performance artists, or possibly just eccentric visitors from somewhere with interesting customs. Cultural exchange proceeding smoothly. Humans demonstrate sophisticated understanding of bureaucratic processes and remarkable tolerance for unconventional problem-solving approaches. Another pause. How could she explain that her 17 degrees hadn't prepared her for a species that treated interstellar visitors like slightly exotic foreign exchange students, requesting extended mission timeframe to complete comprehensive cultural assessment? Citizen. What she didn't say was that she was beginning to suspect that humans might be the most terrifyingly adaptable species in the galaxy, and that thought was keeping her awake at night. Meanwhile, back in orbit, their ship's automated systems had been trying to establish communication with the Galactic Council for 3 days. Unfortunately, every time the communication array activated, it was immediately jammed by what appeared to be thousands of signals from the planet's surface. Earth, it turned out, was extremely chatty. Radio waves, television broadcasts, internet traffic, cell phone calls, and something called Wi-Fi created a constant background of electronic noise that made long-distance communication nearly impossible. The ship's computer, already prone to depression, had become convinced that it was being personally insulted by every piece of human technology on the planet. Interference detected, it announced sadly, to nobody in particular. Attempting to compensate. Signal clarity at 7%. Attempting to compensate. Signal clarity at 4%. I don't think they like me. On the planet below, Googly Plops had just finished installing what he thought was a simple communication booster in the City Hall's phone system. What he had actually created was a quantum-entangled relay that was accidentally intercepting and amplifying every electronic signal within a 50-mile radius. Every phone call got slightly better reception. Every Wi-Fi network ran slightly faster. Every radio played slightly clearer. and in space their ship was slowly being driven insane by the electronic equivalent of thousands of people trying to talk at once. But that was a problem for later. Right now, there were more immediate concerns. Folks? Kevin knocked on the door of their converted closet office. We might have a tiny situation. The aliens looked up from their various activities. Captain Blurgle Whiff had been practicing a dance routine about property tax assessment. Lieutenant Sproinky Doink was in the middle of a detailed comfort analysis of the office's desk chairs. Dr. Wimple Fronkth was reviewing applications for the International Festival. Googly Plops was modifying a printer to work faster, better, and with improved color accuracy. What kind of situation? Asked Dr. Wimple Fronkth. Well, Kevin said carefully, there are some people here who want to talk to you. They say they're from the government. Which government? Asked Googly Plops, who had learned that this was an important distinction. The federal government. They're wearing suits and asking questions about unusual activity and unregistered technological improvements, and something about possible security implications of unauthorized infrastructure modifications. The aliens exchanged glances. This sounded ominous. They also mentioned something about your visa applications getting flagged in the system because nobody can figure out what country you're actually from, Kevin added. This was the moment when the aliens realized that accidentally integrating into human bureaucracy was significantly more complicated than they had anticipated. Should we run? Whispered Googly Plops. Where would we run to? Hissed Dr. Wimple Fronkth. We're in the middle of a city on an alien planet. Captain Blurgle Whiff began an agitated dance that roughly translated to, I told you this was a bad idea, but nobody listened. Lieutenant Sproinky Doink slowly reclined, which everyone interpreted as either, I accept our inevitable doom, or this chair really is remarkably comfortable given the circumstances. Actually, Kevin said thoughtfully, I might have an idea, but you're gonna have to trust me on this one. 5 minutes later, the federal agents found themselves face to face with 4 individuals who Kevin introduced as visiting researchers from the International Institute of Experimental Governance Studies. They're here on a joint cultural exchange program, Kevin explained smoothly, studying innovative approaches to municipal efficiency and citizen engagement. Agent Rodriguez, who had been expecting to investigate possible terrorist activity or foreign infiltration, found herself instead looking at what appeared to be a performance artist. Captain Blurgle Whiff was doing his pleased to meet you dance. A furniture ergonomics expert, Lieutenant Sproinky Doink, was demonstrating proper reclining technique. A linguistics professor with multiple degrees, Dr. Wimple Fronkth, was explaining the theoretical basis of cross-cultural communication, and an IT consultant who had apparently solved several long-standing technical problems. Googly Plops was modestly describing his minor optimizations to the city's systems. And you're their liaison, Agent Rodriguez asked Kevin. Cultural Integration Coordinator, Kevin replied without missing a beat. It's a volunteer position. Agent Martinez was reviewing the paperwork. According to these forms, they're here for an academic conference on innovative administrative solutions in small to medium urban environments. That's right, Kevin nodded. Very specialized field, cutting-edge research, and the technological improvements to your computer systems. Pilot program, Googly Plops interjected, testing theoretical applications of advanced optimization algorithms in real-world municipal environments. And this was technically true, which made it much more convincing than an outright lie. Agent Rodriguez looked around the office, noting the dramatically improved efficiency, the happier employees, and the fact that everything seemed to be running better than it had in years. And this is all legal? Oh yes, Dr. Wimple Fronkth assured her, waving her stack of permits and approvals. We've been very careful about proper documentation. 17 different forms, properly notarized and filed in triplicate. The agents spent another hour reviewing paperwork, interviewing city employees, and trying to find anything suspicious about what appeared to be a highly successful cultural exchange program. The closest they came to a red flag was Captain Blurgle Whiff's interpretive dance demonstration, which one agent described as either brilliant avant-garde performance art or a severe neurological condition. In the end, they left with business cards, a recommendation that the program be expanded to other cities, and a request for Captain Blurgle Whiff to perform at Agent Rodriguez's daughter's Sweet 16 party. "How?" asked Dr. Wimple-Fronkth after the agents left. "Did you come up with all that so quickly?" Kevin shrugged. "You learned to think on your feet working night shift at Denny's? Plus, most of what I said was actually true. You are doing cultural exchange research. You are studying governmental efficiency. You are visiting from somewhere with different customs. I just didn't mention the part about you being from space." "But won't they figure it out eventually?" worried Googly Plops. "Maybe," Kevin admitted. "But by then you'll either have figured out what you actually want to do, or you'll have become so useful that nobody will want to get rid of you." This was disturbingly accurate. Over the next week, word of the International Institute visitors spread throughout the local government network. Other cities began calling to ask about the program. Universities inquired about research collaborations. The state government sent observers to document best practices in cultural integration. Captain Blurgle Whiff found himself invited to demonstrate his interpretive policy communication techniques at a statewide conference on citizen engagement. Lieutenant Sprinky Doink was consulted by 3 different furniture manufacturers about ergonomic design improvements. Dr. Wimple-Fronkth was offered a teaching position at the local community college. Googly Plops had requests from 12 different cities to optimize their computer systems. The aliens were accidentally becoming famous. "This is not what was supposed to happen, Doctor," Wimple-Fronkth said for the 10th time, reviewing her latest stack of interview requests and collaboration proposals. "What was supposed to happen?" Kevin asked. They were having their daily debriefing session over coffee and donuts, a ritual that had developed naturally over the past 2 weeks. "We were supposed to make official contact with your planetary leadership, assess your species' technological and cultural development, file a comprehensive report, and recommend appropriate next steps for Earth's integration into the galactic community," she recited. "And instead? Instead, we've accidentally become poster children for international cultural exchange programs. And I think we might be single-handedly changing how municipal governments approach citizen services." "Is that bad?" Dr. Wimple-Fronkth considered this. "I have no idea. The council didn't prepare us for this scenario." The truth was, none of them were prepared for how normal it all felt. Humans had this remarkable ability to take the completely unprecedented and treat it as just another day at the office. 4 beings from different star systems, with radically different biologies and cultures, had integrated into a human bureaucracy so seamlessly that people were now asking if the program could be expanded. "Maybe," suggested Kevin, "the problem is that you're thinking too much like diplomats and not enough like people." "What do you mean?" "Well, diplomacy is all formal and official, right? Treaties and protocols and stuff. But what you've actually been doing is just living here, working here, being part of the community. That's not diplomacy, that's just life." This observation would have profound implications for galactic relations if anyone had been taking notes. Unfortunately, while the aliens were successfully integrating into human society, their ship was having what could only be described as a complete nervous breakdown. The constant interference from Earth's communication networks had convinced the ship's AI that it was being personally attacked by every human electronic device on the planet. Its attempts to boost signal strength to contact the Galactic Council had created a feedback loop that was slowly driving it insane. "Day 14, it announced to the empty ship. "Still cannot establish contact with base, beginning to suspect conspiracy. Local electronic devices appear hostile." Radio waves seem personally vindictive. Consider possibility that I am being deliberately tormented by malicious planetary intelligence. The ship's paranoia was not entirely unfounded. Googly Plops's minor optimizations to the city's communication systems had created quantum resonance effects that were propagating through the entire regional network. Every time the ship tried to send a message, it was immediately absorbed, analyzed, and retransmitted by thousands of human devices that had been inadvertently upgraded to galactic-level processing power. The result was that the ship's distress calls were being automatically translated into everything from pizza orders to dating app messages to online reviews for local restaurants. Help, stranded on primitive world with malfunctioning crew, became great pizza, friendly staff, would recommend. Request immediate extraction, mission compromised, became looking for someone special to share starlight walks and cosmic adventures. Crew may have been compromised by local population, became 5 stars. Amazing customer service, really went above and beyond. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was receiving reports that the diplomatic mission to Earth was proceeding better than expected, with overwhelming positive local response and unprecedented integration success. Council members were beginning to wonder if they had dramatically underestimated both the mission's complexity and the crew's competence. Back on Earth, the aliens were facing their own crisis of confidence. "I've been thinking," announced Dr. Wimple-Fronkth during their morning coffee ritual, "about what exactly we're supposed to report to the Council. Oh, that humans are remarkably adaptable and surprisingly welcoming to visitors," suggested Googly Plops. "That their bureaucratic systems are simultaneously completely dysfunctional and surprisingly effective," added Captain Blurgle Whiff through a dance that conveyed philosophical confusion. "That they treat first contact with alien species like a minor administrative inconvenience," Lieutenant Sproinky Doink contributed by reclining thoughtfully. Dr. Wimple-Fronkth shook her head. "Those are all true, but they're not the real problem. The real problem is that we were sent here to assess whether humans are ready for galactic integration, and I'm starting to think we've been asking the wrong question." "What do you mean?" Kevin asked. He had become an unofficial member of their morning meetings, partly because he was their cultural liaison, and partly because he made excellent coffee. "We've been trying to figure out if humans are ready for US," she explained. "But what if the question should be, are we ready for humans?" This was a disturbing thought. The Galactic Council's standard procedure was to evaluate primitive species for their potential integration into galactic civilization. The assumption was always that the primitive species would need to adapt to galactic standards, not the other way around. But humans seem to have an unsettling tendency to make everyone else adapt to them, usually without even realizing they were doing it. "Look at what's happened to us," Dr. Wimple-Fronkth continued. "We came here as representatives of an advanced galactic civilization, and within 2 weeks we've all got human jobs, human friends, and human bureaucratic responsibilities. We're not observing human culture anymore, we're part of it." "Is that bad?" Kevin asked. "I don't know," she admitted. "That's the problem. The Council's protocols don't cover this scenario. What do we report? Mission successful, humans have conquered us through kindness and superior coffee." Googly Plops had been quiet during this conversation, which was unusual. He was typically enthusiastic about sharing his observations about human technology and culture, but today he seemed troubled. "There's something else," he said finally. "Something I've been trying not to think about." "What?" asked Dr. Wimple-Fronkth. "The ship hasn't been able to contact the Council for over a week now, and every time I try to boost the communication array, the interference gets worse." "Interference from what?" "From everything. Human technology is everywhere, and it's all connected, and it's all trying to help. Every time we send a signal, it gets picked up by cell towers, Wi-Fi networks, satellite systems, radio stations, and they all try to improve it, or route it more efficiently, or translate it into something more useful. That doesn't sound terrible, Kevin observed. It is, if you're trying to maintain galactic communication protocols, Googly Plops explained. Human technology doesn't just receive signals, it interprets them. It tries to figure out what they're supposed to be and make them better. Our distress calls are getting turned into restaurant reviews. This revelation cast their entire situation in a new light. They weren't just accidentally integrating into human society, they were accidentally being absorbed by human technology. "So we're stuck here?" asked Captain Blurgle-Whiff through a dance of mild panic. "Not stuck," Googly Plops corrected. "Just extremely comfortable. The ship is fine, the humans are friendly, we've got interesting work, excellent coffee and healthcare benefits. From a practical standpoint, being stuck on Earth is not exactly a hardship. But we have responsibilities," Dr. Wimplefronk protested. "We're supposed to file reports, follow protocols, maintain contact with the Council." "Why?" Kevin asked. The question hung in the air like a particularly uncomfortable silence. Because that's what we're supposed to do, Doctor." Wimplefronk said weakly. "But what if," Kevin continued, "what you're actually supposed to do is learn about humans? And what if the best way to learn about humans is to just be around humans? Live like humans? Work with humans? That's not how galactic diplomacy works," she objected. "Maybe that's the problem," Kevin suggested. "Maybe galactic diplomacy doesn't work for humans because humans don't work like other species." Lieutenant Sprunky Doink had been listening to this entire conversation while slowly reclining in what everyone had learned to recognize as his deep thought position. Finally, he spoke. "Perhaps," he said in his slow, furniture-like way, "the question is not whether humans are ready for galactic civilization, but whether galactic civilization is ready for humans." This observation was so profound that everyone sat in silence for several minutes, contemplating its implications. The silence was broken by Kevin's phone ringing. "Hello," he answered. "Oh, hi, Gary." "What?" "No, I can't come in early. I'm in a meeting with the visiting researchers." "What do you mean, emergency?" "Och. Oh, no. Okay, I'll be right there." He hung up and looked at the aliens with an expression of barely controlled panic. "We have a problem," he announced. "A big problem." "How big?" asked Dr. Wimplefronk. "Remember how you guys have been accidentally upgrading all the technology in the city?" "Yes." "Well, apparently word got out, and now there are reporters here. Lots of reporters. From newspapers, TV stations, technology magazines. They want to interview the revolutionary international research team that's been making breakthrough advances in municipal technology integration." The aliens stared at him. "They want to interview US?" squeaked Googly Plops. "On television?" Captain Blurgle-Whiff's dance conveyed pure terror. "With cameras?" Dr. Wimplefronk's 17 degrees had not prepared her for media attention. Lieutenant Sprunky Doink reclined so far back he was practically horizontal, which everyone correctly interpreted as, "I am having an existential crisis." "It gets worse," Kevin continued. "Gary says there are also some people here from something called the Department of Advanced Research Projects, and they're asking very specific questions about the technology improvements. Technical questions. The kind of questions that require answers that involve a lot of science words. This was definitely a problem. The aliens' cover story of being international researchers would not survive contact with actual researchers who knew what they were talking about." "Options?" asked Dr. Wimplefronk, falling back on her diplomatic training. "We could run," suggested Googly Plops. "Where? Back to the ship?" Captain Blurgle-Whiff's dance was agitated. "The ship that can't communicate with anyone and is probably having a nervous breakdown?" "We could tell the truth," suggested Lieutenant Sprunky Doink. Everyone stared at him. "Just tell them we're aliens from space who accidentally became municipal employees. That would cause a planetary panic." Dr. Wimplefronk objected. "Would it?" Kevin asked. "I mean, you've been here for 2 weeks. Has anyone panicked?" "That's different. We told them we were international researchers. Did we, though? Kevin considered this. I said you were from the International Institute of Experimental Governance Studies. I never said what planet that institute was on. This was technically true, and therefore technically not lying, which made it the kind of bureaucratic loophole that humans excelled at finding. Plus, Kevin continued, look at how everyone's reacted so far. City employees think you're interesting colleagues. The federal agents think you're legitimate researchers. The mayor wants to expand the program. Does any of that sound like a species that's going to panic over first contact? But this is different, Dr. Wimple-Frank insisted. This is media attention, public scrutiny, official investigation. So humans are supposed to be a primitive species that's not ready for knowledge of galactic civilization? Kevin laughed. Lady, we've got satellite TV, international space stations, and the internet. Half the movies we make are about aliens visiting Earth. The other half are about us visiting aliens. We've been imagining first contact for decades. The only thing that would surprise most people is how normal you all turned out to be. This was a perspective that the Galactic Council's briefings had somehow failed to consider. Think about it, Kevin continued. What's the worst thing that could happen? People find out that aliens are real, and that they're here working in municipal government, making everything run better and generally being helpful. That's not a crisis. That's a success story. But the protocols... Dr. Wimple-Frank began weakly. What protocols? Kevin asked. You can't contact your council, your ship is having technical difficulties, and you've been here long enough to realize that everything you thought you knew about humans was wrong anyway. Maybe it's time to try something new. It was at this moment that Dr. Wimple-Frank realized something that would have horrified her supervisors at the Galactic Council. She was starting to think like a human. 20 minutes later, the four aliens found themselves in the City Hall conference room, facing a crowd of reporters, researchers, and very curious government officials. Kevin had suggested that the best defense was a good offense, and that they should control the narrative by being proactive rather than reactive. Good morning, Dr. Wimple-Frank began, her 17 degrees finally proving useful as she adopted her most professional academic tone. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate your interest in our research project. Dr. Frank, called out a reporter from the technology magazine, can you explain exactly how your team has achieved these remarkable improvements in municipal computer systems? Certainly, she replied smoothly. Our approach combines advanced optimization algorithms with adaptive learning systems and quantum-enhanced processing protocols. Indeed, this was completely accurate and completely incomprehensible, which made it perfect for a press conference. Mr. Plops, another reporter addressed Googly Plops, what institution developed these technologies? The research represents a collaborative effort between multiple institutions across different regions, Googly Plops replied carefully. The specific methodologies are based on principles that are quite advanced compared to current terrestrial standards. Again, completely true and completely vague. Captain Whiff, a TV reporter, approached Captain Blurgle Whiff. Can you demonstrate your interpretive communication techniques? Captain Blurgle Whiff launched into an elaborate dance routine that explained the philosophical foundations of cross-cultural understanding through universal kinesthetic expression. The reporters had no idea what it meant, but it looked impressive on camera. Dr. Doink, a government researcher, addressed Lieutenant Sprunky Doink. Your ergonomic assessments have identified problems that our own specialists missed. What's your background in furniture design? Lieutenant Sprunky Doink slowly reclined to his most authoritative position. I have extensive personal experience with furniture functionality across a wide range of design paradigms, he said with dignity. My approach emphasizes direct, hands-on evaluation of comfort and structural integrity. No, for the next hour, the aliens fielded questions with a combination of technical accuracy, academic jargon, and carefully worded non-answers. They managed to sound both knowledgeable and mysterious, which only increased the reporter's interest. "One final question," called out a reporter from the international desk. "This research collaboration involves institutions from multiple countries, but we haven't been able to identify exactly which countries. Can you clarify your institutional affiliations?" Dr. Wimpelfrongsth looked at her colleagues, then at Kevin, who gave her an encouraging nod. "Our research consortium," she said carefully, "represents institutions from very distant regions, working on problems of mutual interest. The specific geographic details are less important than the collaborative spirit and the practical results we've achieved. But surely you can tell us which countries." "What I can tell you, Doctor," Wimpelfrongsth interrupted, "is that our work here has demonstrated something remarkable about human society. You've taken 4 researchers from very different backgrounds, with very different approaches to problem solving, and not only welcomed us into your community, but allowed us to contribute in meaningful ways. That adaptability, that openness to new ideas and new people is something that deserves recognition." Thus, this was not exactly what the reporters had been expecting, but it was a good sound bite, and several of them were nodding approvingly. "What we've learned," she continued, "is that humans have a remarkable capacity for integration, cooperation, and innovation. You don't just tolerate differences, you find ways to make those differences useful. That's not just good municipal management, that's a model for how different groups can work together productively." "Are you saying that this project has implications beyond municipal government?" asked the technology reporter. "I'm saying," Dr. Wimpelfrongsth replied, "that what we've observed here in Poughkeepsie suggests that humans are ready for much larger challenges and much more diverse collaborations than anyone might have expected." This statement would later be cited in academic papers, government reports, and at least 3 doctoral dissertations on international cooperation theory. After the press conference, the aliens retreated to their converted closet office to assess the damage. "That went better than expected," Kevin observed. "Did it?" asked Dr. Wimpelfrongsth. "Because I think I may have just accidentally announced that humans are ready for galactic contact without actually mentioning galactic contact. Is that bad? I have no idea. The Council's protocols don't cover accidentally preparing a species for first contact through municipal employment and press conferences." Googly Plops had been monitoring the media coverage on his tablet. "The good news is that the press seems to think we're just very advanced international researchers. The bad news is that we're now nationally famous international researchers, and people are going to want to know more about our distant institutions and advanced methodologies." "How long do you think we can maintain this?" asked Captain Blurglewif through a worried dance. "As long as we keep being useful," Kevin replied. "The thing about humans is we don't ask too many questions about things that are working. If you keep making improvements, solving problems, and generally being helpful, most people won't care if you're a little mysterious about your backgrounds." "But what about the researchers, the government investigators? They're going to want specifics." "So give them specifics," Kevin suggested. "True specifics, just carefully selected ones." Lieutenant Sproinky Doink had been quiet throughout this discussion, slowly reclining in what everyone recognized as his deepest thinking position. Finally, he spoke. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "the question is not how long we can maintain this deception, but whether it actually is a deception." "What do you mean?" asked Dr. Wimpelfrongsth. "We told them we were researchers studying human society and government. We are researchers studying human society and government. We told them we were from distant institutions working on advanced problems. We are from distant institutions working on advanced problems. We told them we were here to test new approaches to cooperation and integration. We are testing new approaches to cooperation and integration. But we didn't tell them we were aliens." "And did they ask?" This was an uncomfortable point. In all their interactions with humans, from Kevin to city employees to federal agents to reporters, not one person had ever directly asked if they were from another planet. Humans seem to have a remarkable ability to fill in gaps in information with reasonable assumptions, even when those assumptions were wildly inaccurate. "So, what are you suggesting?" Dr. Wimpelfronk asked. "I'm suggesting," Lieutenant Sproinky Doink said, "that maybe we stop worrying about maintaining a cover story and start thinking about what we've actually accomplished here." Which is? We've successfully integrated 4 alien individuals into human society. We've demonstrated that interspecies cooperation is possible. We've shown that humans can adapt to and benefit from contact with non-human intelligence. And we've done it all without causing panic, cultural disruption, or diplomatic incidents. You're saying we've accidentally conducted a successful first contact mission. I'm saying we've conducted a better first contact mission than anyone planned. This observation hung in the air while everyone considered its implications. "There's just one problem," Googlyplop said finally. "We still can't contact the council to report our success." "Maybe," Kevin suggested. "That's not actually a problem." "What do you mean?" "Well, think about it. You came here expecting to find a primitive species that needed guidance from advanced galactic civilization. Instead, you found a species that immediately integrated you into their society and put you to work solving real problems. Which one of you is more advanced?" This was an uncomfortable question for beings who had spent their entire lives assuming that galactic civilization represented the pinnacle of social and technological development. "Furthermore," Kevin continued, "if your council sent you here to assess whether humans were ready for galactic contact, haven't you already answered that question? Not just answered it, but provided proof." "How do you mean?" "You've been in galactic contact for 2 weeks. How has it gone?" Dr. Wimpelfronk considered this. They had successfully integrated into human society. Humans had adapted to their presence without major problems. Both sides had benefited from the exchange. Cultural differences had been accommodated rather than ignored. Technological improvements had been implemented without disruption. "It's gone remarkably well," she admitted. "So the question isn't whether humans are ready for galactic contact," Kevin concluded. "The question is whether galactic civilization is ready for the kind of contact that humans actually want, which is partnership, not patronage, cooperation, not conquest, integration, not observation." These words would later be carved into the memorial commemorating Earth's first official contact with galactic civilization, though none of them knew that at the time. Over the next month, the aliens found themselves at the center of what the media had dubbed the Poughkeepsie model of international cooperation. Cities across the country were requesting their own international research teams. Universities were offering exchange programs. The State Department was inquiring about expanding cultural exchange initiatives. The aliens had accidentally started a movement. "This is getting out of hand," Dr. Wimpelfronk announced during their morning coffee meeting. "We're supposed to be conducting a discrete assessment mission, not revolutionizing international relations." "Are we revolutionizing international relations?" Kevin asked. "According to the Washington Post, yes. According to the UN Observer, yes. According to the Journal of International Affairs, definitely yes." "Is that bad?" "I don't know if it's bad. The Council never prepared us for accidentally becoming thought leaders in cross-cultural cooperation." Captain Blurgle Whiff had been practicing a new dance routine that interpreted the philosophical implications of their situation. His conclusion, expressed through particularly eloquent arm movements, was that they were no longer operating within any known framework of galactic diplomacy. Lieutenant Sproinky Doink had reached a state of such profound reclining that he was practically one with his chair. "Perhaps," he suggested, "the problem is that we're still thinking like galactic diplomats instead of thinking like whatever it is we've become, which is residents." The word hung in the air with uncomfortable accuracy. "We're not visitors anymore," he continued. We have jobs, responsibilities, friends, places to live. We're part of the community. We're not studying human society from the outside, we're participating in it from the inside. But we're supposed to return to the council with a report. What if we don't? Googlyplops asked quietly. Everyone stared at him. What if, he continued, instead of trying to contact the council to report on humanity, we help humanity contact the council directly? This was such a radical concept that Dr. Wimpelfronk actually dropped her coffee cup. You're suggesting we facilitate official first contact? I'm suggesting we stop pretending that first contact hasn't already happened. We're here. They know we're here. Everyone's getting along fine. The only thing missing is the official paperwork. But the protocols... What protocols? Kevin interrupted. You've already thrown out every protocol you had. You've integrated into human society, you've shared technology, you've influenced government policy, you've given media interviews. If there were protocols against that stuff, you've already broken them. Besides, Googlyplops added, what's the worst thing that could happen if humans make direct contact with the Galactic Council? Planetary panic, cultural disruption, technological contamination, violation of the Prime Directive? Has any of that happened yet? Kevin asked. Dr. Wimpelfronk considered this. No. Then maybe the problem isn't that humans aren't ready for galactic contact. Maybe the problem is that the Council isn't ready for human contact. This observation would prove to be remarkably prescient. 6 weeks after landing in a Denny's parking lot, the aliens made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. They decided to stop being diplomats and start being residents. We need to make a choice, Dr. Wimpelfronk announced to her colleagues. We can keep trying to maintain contact with the Council and report back on humanity's readiness for galactic integration. Or we can accept that we are the galactic integration and focus on making it work. What does that mean, practically? Asked Captain Blurglewif through a dance of cautious curiosity. It means we stop pretending we're going to leave eventually, she replied. It means we help Kevin and the city with their international festival. It means Googlyplops keeps improving human technology instead of worrying about contamination protocols. It means we start thinking of ourselves as the first galactic citizens of Earth instead of temporary visitors. And if the Council eventually makes contact, then they'll find a planet that's already successfully integrated galactic citizens into its society. They'll find proof that humans and galactic species can work together productively. They'll find a model for how first contact should actually work. Lieutenant Sproinky Doink had achieved such a state of philosophical reclining that he was approaching furniture enlightenment. Or, he added thoughtfully, they'll find that humans have accidentally conquered galactic civilization through superior coffee and better office furniture. This possibility was more disturbing than anyone wanted to admit. 3 months later, Kevin was promoted to Director of Cultural Integration for the city of Poughkeepsie, making him the first human to hold an official government position specifically created for managing alien-human relations, though his business cards still said International Liaison because Alien Relations Director was considered too honest for government work. Dr. Wimpelfronk had accepted a position as Professor of Practical Xenosociology at the local community college, where her 17 theoretical degrees were finally balanced by actual practical experience with alien-human interaction. Captain Blurglewif had founded the Interpretive Communication Institute, which was revolutionizing conflict resolution through dance-based mediation techniques. His waiting list included 2 divorce attorneys, the State Department, and the United Nations. Lieutenant Sproinky Doink had become the world's most successful furniture consultant, with a client list that included major corporations, government agencies, and at least 3 royal families. His approach of personally testing every piece of furniture had identified comfort and safety issues that had been overlooked for decades. Googlyplops had started his own technology consulting firm, specializing in optimization solutions for complex systems. His client list was classified, but rumors suggested it included NASA, the Pentagon, and several Fortune 500 companies. And their ship, still parked behind the Denny's, had finally managed to establish communication with the Galactic Council. The message it received in response to its months of status reports was brief. Mission parameters exceeded, requesting detailed briefing on integration protocols. Council preparing first official contact delegation. Estimated arrival, 6 months. Please advise on appropriate landing coordinates and cultural preparation requirements. The ship's AI, which had spent months convinced that it was being tormented by hostile planetary intelligence, suddenly realized that the interference it had been experiencing was actually humanity's entire technological infrastructure trying to help it communicate more effectively. "Oh," it said to the empty ship, "that explains a lot." Meanwhile, at their morning coffee meeting, the aliens were reading the Council's message with a mixture of excitement and terror. "They're coming," Dr. Wimple Frank said unnecessarily. "In 6 months," added Googly Plops. "For official first contact," Captain Blurgle Whiff danced nervously, "and they want US to prepare humanity for the meeting," Lieutenant Sprinky Doink observed from his state of maximum recline. "So," Kevin said cheerfully, "I guess we'd better get to work." The next 6 months would go down in history as the strangest period of diplomatic preparation ever recorded. Instead of government officials and military leaders, the task of preparing humanity for first contact fell to a night shift Denny's manager, 4 accidentally integrated aliens, and the entire population of Poughkeepsie. Kevin approached the challenge with the same methodical determination that had gotten him through years of late-night customer service. "Okay," he announced at their first planning meeting, "we need to prepare an entire planet for meeting aliens. How hard can it be?" The answer, it turned out, was surprisingly manageable if you approached it like any other large-scale community event. "First," Kevin continued, "we need to figure out what the Council delegation is going to expect and what humanity is going to expect, and then figure out how to manage the gap between those expectations." Dr. Wimple Frank consulted her notes from the Council's message. "They're sending a formal diplomatic delegation with representatives from 12 different species. Standard protocol for initial contact with developing civilizations." And what does standard protocol involve? Formal ceremonies, official presentations, documentation of technological and cultural achievements, assessment of readiness for galactic membership. So basically, they're expecting to show up and give humanity a test. That's not an inaccurate way to put it. Kevin considered this. And how do you think humans are going to react to aliens showing up and telling them they need to pass a test to join the galactic community? Poorly. Very poorly. Humans don't like being tested by people they've never met, especially when those people think they're more advanced. This was a problem the Council had not anticipated. Their standard first contact protocols assumed that primitive species would be grateful for the opportunity to join galactic civilization. They had not considered the possibility that humans might take offense at being evaluated. "So what do we do?" asked Googly Plops. "We change the game," Kevin replied. "Instead of letting them test us, we show them what we've already accomplished. We demonstrate successful human-alien integration. We prove that Earth is already part of galactic civilization. How? The Poughkeepsie model. We scale it up." Over the next 6 months, what had started as a small municipal cultural exchange program expanded into a global phenomenon. The 4 aliens traveled to cities around the world, helping establish international research partnerships that were actually human-alien collaboration programs. In Tokyo, Captain Blurgle Whiff worked with the metropolitan government to develop interpretive communication protocols for international business negotiations. His dance-based conflict resolution techniques were being adopted by multinational corporations as a more effective alternative to traditional mediation. In London, Lieutenant Sprinky Doink consulted with Parliament on ergonomic improvements to the House of Commons. His recommendations resulted in the first productive legislative session in decades, leading to speculation that comfortable politicians were more cooperative politicians. In São Paulo, Dr. Wimple Frongth established the world's first academic program in applied xenosociology, training a new generation of scholars in the practical aspects of cross-species relations. In Mumbai, Googly Plops worked with the technology sector to implement quantum-enhanced computing systems that revolutionized everything from traffic management to medical research. By the time the council delegation arrived, Earth had dozens of successful human-alien integration programs operating in major cities around the world. The aliens were no longer visitors studying human society. They were contributing members of human society. The council's ship landed in Central Park on a Tuesday morning in June because Kevin had determined that Tuesday was statistically the least likely day for anyone to panic about anything. The landing was broadcast live on every major news network, but instead of mass hysteria, the reaction was more along the lines of, "Oh good, the official delegation is finally here." Humans, it turned out, were remarkably adaptable. After months of news reports about successful international research collaborations with advanced technological partners, the revelation that these partners were actually aliens was received more as an interesting clarification than a world-shattering disclosure. "Well," said the BBC correspondent, "that explains the interpretive dance." The council delegation consisted of 12 beings representing the major species of galactic civilization. They arrived expecting to find a primitive world populated by creatures who had never encountered alien life. Instead, they found a planet where alien-human cooperation was already commonplace, where humans had adapted to extraterrestrial presence with remarkable ease, and where the assessment mission had somehow become an integration success story. "This is unprecedented," announced High Counselor Rex Malthor, whose name was still pronounced like a digestive disorder, as he reviewed the situation reports. "Unprecedented how?" asked Kevin, who had been designated as Earth's official liaison for the first contact ceremonies. "In the entire history of galactic expansion, we have never encountered a species that integrated our representatives into their society before we made official contact. Is that good or bad? We don't know. Our protocols don't cover this scenario." The formal first contact ceremony took place on the steps of the United Nations building, with representatives from every nation on Earth and every major species in the galaxy. But instead of the traditional presentation of galactic civilization to primitive humanity, it became something entirely different, a celebration of what had already been accomplished. Dr. Wimple Frongth, now speaking as Earth's first professor of applied xenosociology, presented the findings of the most comprehensive study of human-alien relations ever conducted. Her conclusion was that humans possessed a remarkable capacity for integration, adaptation, and cooperation that made them ideal candidates not just for galactic membership, but for galactic leadership in cross-species relations. Captain Blurgle Whiff performed an interpretive dance that told the story of the past year, from confused first contact in a Denny's parking lot to successful integration across multiple continents. His performance was so moving that 3 council members requested copies for their own archives. Lieutenant Sprinky Doink presented his analysis of the ergonomic and social factors that contributed to successful interspecies cooperation, delivered from the most comfortable chair in UN history. Googly Plops demonstrated the technological advances that had resulted from human-alien collaboration, including communication systems that could translate not just languages, but cultural concepts, and computing networks that enhanced rather than replaced human decision-making. And Kevin, speaking as Earth's Director of Cultural Integration, made the presentation that would be quoted in diplomatic texts for generations to come. Honored council members, you came here to assess whether humanity is ready to join galactic civilization. But what we've discovered over the past year is that the question was wrong. Humanity isn't ready to join galactic civilization as it currently exists. But galactic civilization is ready to evolve into something better, something that includes not just humans, but the human approach to cooperation, integration, and problem-solving. What we offer the galaxy isn't just another species to be managed and guided. We offer a new model for how different beings can work together, not as advanced civilizations enlightening primitive ones, but as partners contributing different strengths to common challenges. Your representatives didn't just study us, they became part of us, and in doing so, they showed us something remarkable, that the barriers between species are not as important as the bridges we can build across them. So yes, humanity is ready for galactic contact. But more importantly, we're ready to help galactic civilization become what it could be. Not a hierarchy of advanced and primitive species, but a community of different beings working together to solve problems that none of us could solve alone. The speech was followed by the longest silence in UN history, as both human and alien representatives contemplated the implications of what they had just heard. Finally, High Counselor Vrex Malthor spoke. "In 3,000 years of galactic expansion," he said slowly, "no species has ever offered to help YES evolve." "Maybe," Kevin replied, "that's because you never asked." The formal vote on Earth's admission to galactic civilization was unanimous, but the real decision had been made months earlier in a converted closet office in Poughkeepsie City Hall over coffee and donuts. 5 years later, the Galactic Council had relocated its headquarters to Earth, specifically to the building that had once housed the Poughkeepsie Department of Cultural Integration. The human approach to cross-species cooperation had become the standard model for galactic diplomacy. Dr. Wimple Fronkth served as the Council's first Director of Applied Integration Studies. Captain Blurgle Whiff established the Galactic Institute of Interpretive Communication. Lieutenant Sproinky Doink became the galaxy's most sought-after consultant on interspecies comfort and cooperation. Googly Plops founded the Galactic Technology Integration Consortium, and Kevin became the first human Director General of Galactic Relations, a position that had been created specifically to recognize his unique contribution to interspecies diplomacy. The Denny's where it all began was declared a Galactic Heritage Site, with a plaque that read, "First contact achieved here through superior coffee and customer service." But perhaps the most significant change was one that most beings never noticed. The galaxy stopped thinking of first contact as something that happened to primitive species, and started thinking of it as something that happened between equal partners. The universe had learned something important from humanity, that the most advanced civilizations are not those that have the best technology or the most sophisticated cultures, but those that are best at making everyone feel welcome. After all, as Kevin often said in his speeches to new galactic members, the secret to successful diplomacy isn't knowing how to talk to aliens. It's knowing how to make aliens feel at home. And somewhere in space, their old ship's AI had finally found peace, having discovered that being surrounded by helpful technology wasn't an attack. It was just what it felt like to be part of a community that actually cared about making things work better for everyone. The galaxy was a friendlier place now, and it all started because 4 incompetent aliens landed behind a Denny's and met a human who believed that everyone deserved